The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with a heavy silence. It was the silence of power, the silence of judgment, the silence of beings who believed themselves above all others. Around a long circular hall, countless alien species sat in high seats carved from shining metal and stone. The walls were alive with moving lights, and a massive projection of stars stretched across the chamber dome, making it feel as if the council floated in the middle of the galaxy itself. At the very center of this hall was a single raised platform. It was here that announcements were made, here that new laws were passed, and here that entire civilizations were judged. On this day, the projection shifted, and the image of Earth came into view. The blue and green planet spun slowly, glowing against the darkness of space. Murmurs spread among the alien representatives. Some whispered with impatience, others with curiosity. Finally, the supreme speaker of the council, a tall being with shimmering silver skin and eyes that burned like twin suns, stood from his seat. His voice echoed across the chamber, magnified so all could hear. "Today," he declared, "we claim authority over the planet Earth. Humanity has grown too bold, too reckless, and too uncontrolled. For the peace of the galaxy, they must now bow to the council." The statement was followed by silence. No cheers, no applause. Only silence. Then, after a pause, a ripple of soft voices began among the council members. They spoke of humans as if they were children, stubborn and wild. Some laughed softly, certain that Earth would resist but fail. Others nodded in agreement, already imagining what resources and power would be taken once humans were forced to kneel. The council had spoken, and now they waited. Across the chamber, in a smaller section reserved for representatives of younger races, a group of humans sat today. They were few in number, dressed in simple dark suits, without weapons or armor. They looked small compared to the towering forms of the other alien species around them. Yet there was something strange in their silence. One of the alien delegates leaned toward another and whispered, "Why do they not protest? Why do they not cry out?" Another shook his head. "Perhaps they are afraid. Perhaps they know resistance is useless." But the humans did not look afraid. Their faces were calm, unreadable. Their eyes were steady. They sat without moving, without answering, as if the council's words meant nothing at all. The speaker frowned. He expected resistance, begging, or at least anger. Instead, he received silence. He raised his voice again. "Humanity, do you understand what is being given to you? From this day, your world is under council law. Your fleets will be registered under our control. Your leaders will answer to us. Your future will be chosen by us." Again, there was silence. The humans did not speak. Not one word. An uneasy feeling spread through the chamber. The silence was not the silence of fear. It was something else, something heavier. The aliens began to glance at one another, shifting in their seats. A creature with 4 eyes and scaled skin slammed a clawed hand against his table. "Answer. Show respect before this council. Do you not understand what has been decided?" Still, the humans gave no answer. One of them, a tall figure with gray hair and a calm expression, only folded his hands on the table and stared at the great projection of Earth above them. The silence grew sharper. It was as if the humans were not ignoring the council, but judging it in return. More whispers filled the chamber. Are they planning something? Why are they so calm? Do they not see the fleets we command? The armies we control? The speaker slammed his staff onto the platform, and the sound echoed like thunder. Humanity, you will obey. This council has the power to destroy you in a single day. Do not test our patience. At last, one of the humans moved. A woman with dark eyes and a quiet presence leaned forward. She did not stand, did not shout, did not raise her voice. She simply spoke in a calm tone that carried across the hall. We have heard your demand. The words were simple, but they made the entire chamber fall silent again. The aliens leaned forward, waiting for her to continue. But she did not. That was all she said. The speaker narrowed his burning eyes. And what is your reply? The human woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she leaned back in her seat, folded her arms, and said nothing more. Confusion rippled through the chamber. The council members looked at one another in disbelief. Some laughed nervously. Some hissed in anger. Others began to feel a strange chill. One alien leaned close to another. Do they think silence is strength? Do they think they can defy us with calm looks and quiet words? But another whispered back, no, this is not weakness. This is something else. Look at them. They are not afraid. The tension in the hall began to grow heavy, almost unbearable. The humans did not move, did not argue, did not plead. Their silence was louder than any speech could have been. Finally, one of the elder council members, a being whose species had conquered dozens of worlds, rose to his feet. His voice was cold and sharp. If Earth will not speak, then Earth will be crushed. Their silence is nothing but arrogance. We will show them the price of defying the council. The chamber rumbled with agreement. Many of the council members shouted in anger now, demanding punishment, demanding war. The projection of Earth spun slowly above them, glowing softly against the darkness. And still, the humans did not move. The speaker raised his staff again and silenced the voices. Very well. If Earth refuses to submit, then Earth will learn fear. Their fleets will burn. Their cities will fall. Their people will kneel. But as these words echoed, something strange happened. One of the humans finally smiled. It was not a mocking smile, not a nervous one. It was calm, controlled. A smile that carried no fear. The aliens froze. For a moment, the entire chamber seemed colder. Why would a human smile when threatened with destruction by the greatest power in the galaxy? The humans stood together. They did not bow. They did not protest. They simply walked out of the chamber without a word. Their footsteps echoed against the floor, slow and steady, until the doors closed behind them. The silence they left behind was heavier than before. The council members stared at each other, unsettled. Some tried to laugh, but the sound was weak. Others tried to speak, but their voices shook. Finally, one alien whispered the question that many were thinking. Why are humans so calm? The question hung in the air like a shadow, unanswered. No one in the chamber knew that this silence, this calm, was the beginning of something far greater. No one knew that Earth was already preparing its answer. An answer that would not come with begging or surrender. An answer that would shake the galaxy itself. And though the council believed they held authority, in truth, the balance of power had already begun to shift. Because humanity was not afraid. And that was more dangerous than anything the council had ever faced. The Galactic Council chamber was restless after the humans left. The golden doors had closed behind them with a deep echo, but the sound still seemed to linger in the air. Council members shifted in their seats, speaking in hurried voices, but no one spoke with certainty. The silence of the humans had left behind something heavier than anger, something that made even the most powerful species feel uneasy. At first, the council tried to dismiss it. Some declared it was nothing but arrogance, a childish act from a primitive race. Others said the humans were broken inside, too shocked to resist, and silence was their last form of dignity. But in private corners of the chamber, quiet whispers began to rise. They walked out without fear. They should have begged, or at least tried to argue. What are they hiding? One of the older members of the council leaned forward in his seat. His voice was gravelly, but it carried strength. You all saw it. They are not afraid of us. That is what disturbs me. They sat in this hall surrounded by fleets and armies, by species who have ruled for thousands of years, and they showed no fear. That silence was not weakness. It was a message. The others fell quiet for a moment, because deep down they knew he was right. The image of those calm human faces replayed in their minds. Eyes steady, hands still, voices silent. No trembling. No anger. No panic. Later, when the council adjourned, the whispers continued outside the chamber. Some alien envoys spoke to each other in hushed tones as they floated or walked through the glittering corridors of the station. Stories began to spread, small at first but growing faster. Reports came in from different sectors of the galaxy. Fleets of human ships had disappeared from known routes. Stations that once communicated daily with the council had gone dark. Human colonies, once open to trade and inspection, now denied entry to outsiders. Why are they vanishing? One delegate asked. Because they are preparing, another whispered. No one had proof. No one had solid intelligence. But fear grows fastest in shadows. The less the council knew, the more the whispers spread. On distant worlds, alien spies tried to report back what humanity was doing, but their messages were strange. Some claimed to have seen massive structures being built in deep space, where scanners could barely reach. Others spoke of unusual energy readings, patterns that looked like weapons but were too advanced to decode. A few spies never returned at all. Back in the council halls, paranoia deepened. One race claimed humans were building secret alliances with species outside council control. Another insisted Earth was preparing a weapon powerful enough to burn entire fleets. Every rumor added weight, and no rumor was dismissed completely. The Speaker of the Council tried to bring order. They are weak. They are reckless. Do not fear them, he said with authority. But even his voice did not calm the unease. The image of humans walking away in silence haunted too many minds. In the shadowed corners of the station, alien soldiers and servants spoke quietly among themselves. They repeated the story in their own way. The humans did not bow. They did not kneel. They simply left. Each time the story was told, it grew darker, heavier, until it became less a tale of silence and more a tale of defiance. Some even whispered another rumor, one far more dangerous. Perhaps humanity has already chosen war, and the council does not know it. Time passed, but the whispers did not fade. Instead, they spread like fire in dry grass. From one chamber to another, from one world to another, the story traveled. Fleets grew restless, commanders uncertain. The council claimed authority, but its members were no longer certain if they truly held it. Far away, on Earth, humanity remained quiet. Their fleets did not appear, their leaders did not speak, their envoys gave no reply. But silence can be louder than any words, and the galaxy was beginning to hear it. One night in the council station, 2 alien guards stood watch near the great hall. They were not powerful members, not leaders, just soldiers. Yet even they whispered as they stared at the glowing projection of Earth above the chamber floor. "Do you believe the humans will fight?" one asked. The other shook his head slowly. "No. I believe they already have. We just cannot see it yet." And somewhere deep in space, hidden from the eyes of the council, humanity's preparations continued. The silence was not surrender. It was the calm before something far greater. The council chamber felt colder than before. The long metal walls, normally glowing with warm lights, seemed darker, heavier. Every conversation, every whisper, carried unease. The humans had not spoken. They had walked out as if the council's authority meant nothing. Days passed, but their silence still hung over every meeting. The speaker tried to continue business as usual. He called new sessions, passed new orders, discussed disputes between other races. Yet every time he stood beneath the great projection of the stars, the memory of Earth returned. And always, always, the same question lingered in the minds of the council members. Why were humans so calm? Reports began to arrive from the outer systems. At first, they seemed unimportant. A small fleet of council scouts sent to monitor Earth's borders had failed to report back. Their last signal was calm, routine, and then, nothing. The council dismissed it at first. Space was vast, accidents were common, and sometimes ships were lost. But when a second fleet disappeared, and then a third, whispers began again. Delegates argued. Some claimed it was sabotage from another rival species. Others believed humans had simply struck back in secret. But when investigators searched the regions where the fleets had vanished, they found nothing. No wreckage, no debris, no distress signals. It was as if the ships had simply been erased from existence. The council grew restless. One delegate pounded his table with clawed hands. "This is human defiance. They think they can frighten us with tricks and silence." Another leaned forward, his many eyes blinking nervously. "No. This is not a trick. This is something we cannot understand. We should not underestimate them." Still, no one knew for certain. And every day, Earth gave no answer. Their envoys did not return to the council chamber. Their leaders sent no messages. Their fleets did not appear in known space. Humanity had vanished into silence, yet their presence was felt everywhere. On trading routes, alien merchants whispered of strange sightings. A shadow across the stars, too large to be a normal ship. Strange energy readings that twisted scanners into static. Stories of colonies where the sky seemed to darken without warning. A group of council investigators tried to study these reports, but the data gave them nothing clear. Numbers scrambled, transmissions corrupted, images blurred. It was as if something was hiding in the void, just out of reach. The council demanded answers from the human envoy station orbiting Earth. But the station did not respond. Probes were sent, but they were destroyed or never returned. The planet itself seemed calm, normal on the surface. Cities still glowed with lights. Oceans still reflected the sun. But no transmissions left Earth anymore. No messages to the council, no explanations. The silence grew heavier. One night, in a quiet chamber away from the main hall, a group of alien representatives gathered in secret. They were not allies by nature, but fear had brought them together. "They are preparing for war," one said. "Perhaps," another replied, "but why do they wait?" "Because waiting is their weapon," a third whispered. They argued in low voices, but none could explain the truth. The humans were not acting like any species the council had ever faced. Normally, when a planet was threatened, its leaders either submitted quickly or raged loudly in defiance. But humans did neither. They did not beg. They did not roar. They watched in silence, and their silence spread fear across the galaxy. Some began to see patterns in the chaos. Council fleets vanishing in the same regions, energy signals rising and falling like hidden tides, rumors of alliances with species long thought extinct. None of it was proven, yet together it painted a picture the council did not want to face. The speaker tried to dismiss the fear. In front of the chamber, his voice rang out with confidence. "Humanity is weak. They hide because they know they cannot face us. Do not mistake their silence for strength." But as he spoke, he saw the doubt in the eyes of the others. He felt the unease in the room. He knew his words carried less weight than before. Because silence is a strange weapon. It cannot be measured, it cannot be scanned, it cannot be broken. And the humans wielded it with perfect control. Far beyond the council's reach, in the dark of deep space, something stirred. Massive ships drifted silently, cloaked in shadows. Structures rose in places where no scanners could see. Signals moved in patterns no alien could decode. Humanity was not hiding. Humanity was building. But the council did not know this. All they had was silence. And silence, when it lingers too long, becomes fear. The whispers grew stronger. In every corner of the council station, in every trade route, in every outpost, the same words were repeated. "This is not weakness. This is a warning." The council chamber was restless again. Delegates shifted in their seats, their voices sharp and uneven. For weeks they had waited, but the silence of Earth had not broken. Their spies brought back nothing but confusion, their scouts vanished in the void, and their fleets returned with no answers at all. Some leaders shouted that humanity was weak and afraid. Others whispered that humanity was waiting for the right moment to strike. The uncertainty poisoned every word spoken in the hall. The speaker rose from his seat, his silver skin gleaming under the high lights of the chamber. His voice thundered, strong and filled with authority. "Enough waiting. Enough whispers. If Earth will not answer, then the Council will force them to submit. Our fleets will surround their planet. Our soldiers will march into their cities. They will learn obedience, or they will burn." The chamber echoed with shouts of agreement. Many races, eager to show their strength, demanded war. They wanted to crush the humans quickly, to prove that silence had no power. A decision was made. A grand fleet of the Council, one of the largest in history, would move toward Earth. Hundreds of warships, armed with weapons that had destroyed entire civilizations, would descend upon the blue planet. When news of this decision spread across the galaxy, it was received with excitement by some and fear by others. On distant worlds, common people whispered, "The Council will end humanity in a single day." But others muttered, "What if the humans are waiting for this? What if they are ready?" The great fleet gathered in orbit around a Council staging world. From above, the sky looked like fire, lit by the countless engines of warships. Their commanders were confident, their soldiers eager. They expected Earth to beg for mercy before the first shot was fired. The fleet departed. The void of space swallowed them as they moved toward human territory. 4 days, signals from the fleet reported everything was normal. They crossed borders, they moved through star systems, and finally, they entered the edge of Earth sector. Then, silence. The first signal to vanish was the flagship. Its transmission cut off mid-sentence, without warning, without static, without even a cry for help. Moments later, other ships disappeared. One by one, their signals dropped into nothing. Commanders tried to call out, but there was no answer. Then the entire fleet went silent. Back in the council chamber, the speaker demanded updates. His aides scrambled, trying to reach the fleet, but no messages returned. The chamber grew restless, fear beginning to creep into their voices. "Where are our ships?" one delegate shouted. "What has happened?" Investigators were dispatched. Smaller fleets were sent to trace the path of the vanished armada. They expected to find wreckage, signals of battle, anything at all. But when they arrived, there was nothing. No ships, no debris, no survivors. The fleet was simply gone. Erased, as if swallowed by the void itself. The council erupted in panic. Some shouted that it was impossible, that no force could destroy a fleet of that size without leaving a trace. Others accused rival races of betrayal, claiming humanity could not have done this alone. But beneath all the shouting, one quiet thought grew stronger in every mind: humanity was responsible. The whispers returned, sharper and more fearful than before. They waited. They prepared. And now they strike. In the private corridors of the station, the whispers turned into terror. If they can erase fleets, what can they do to worlds? The speaker tried to silence the panic. He stood tall, his voice echoing with anger. "This is trickery. This is sabotage. Humanity cannot match the Council's power. We will send more fleets, stronger fleets, until they are crushed." But his words no longer carried the same strength. Too many eyes had seen the truth. An entire fleet had vanished. No battle, no warning, no wreckage. Only silence. And in that silence, the galaxy began to realize a terrible truth. Humanity had answered. Not with words. Not with surrender. Not with cries of defiance. But with disappearance. With shadows. With fear. The Council had sent a message of power. Humanity had given its reply. And the reply was terrifying. Across the stars, species that once mocked Earth now watched it with fear. Some began to wonder if alliance with humanity was wiser than opposition. Others tried to hide their doubt, but it showed in their voices, in their eyes, in their trembling hands. The Council had tried to rule Earth. Instead, they had awakened something they could not understand. And in the cold darkness of space, where no one could see, humanity moved silently, preparing for the next step. The council chamber was louder than ever before. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices filled with anger, fear, and disbelief. The great fleet they had sent to Earth's borders was gone. Hundreds of warships, erased as if they had never existed. No wreckage, no survivors, not even a signal to explain what had happened. It was an event no one in the galaxy could understand, and that was what frightened them most. Some leaders demanded immediate retaliation. They wanted to gather every ship, every soldier, and march on Earth with overwhelming force. Others begged for caution, warning that another fleet might vanish just as easily. Old rivalries flared, accusations flew, and chaos filled the hall. The speaker struck his staff against the floor again and again, calling for silence, but even his authority was weaker now. Fear had broken the council's confidence. And then, for the first time in many weeks, the humans returned. The great doors of the chamber opened slowly, their heavy metal frames groaning as if reluctant to move. The sound cut through the chaos, and the shouting stopped. Every delegate turned their eyes toward the entrance. A small group of humans walked into the hall. They wore no armor, carried no weapons, and yet the air seemed heavier around them. Their steps echoed against the floor, slow and steady, as if they had all the time in the universe. At their head was a single envoy, a man with sharp eyes and a calm expression. The council chamber was silent as they crossed to their seats. The speaker stared at them with cold fury. His silver skin shimmered under the lights, but his voice trembled with the weight of what had happened. "You dare return here after destroying a council fleet?" he demanded. His words rang out like thunder. "Do you think your silence can hide your crimes? Speak now, or face the full wrath of the galaxy." The human envoy raised his eyes. He did not flinch. He did not hurry. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost quiet, but it carried across the entire chamber. "Do not test us again." That was all. 4 simple words. But they fell like a blade through the chamber. The delegates froze in their seats, staring at the envoy in disbelief. Some expected him to continue, to explain, to threaten, but he said nothing more. The silence that followed was unbearable. The speaker slammed his staff against the floor. "You think a single sentence can frighten us? You think we will bow to such arrogance?" His voice rose, but beneath his anger was something else. Something the other delegates could hear: fear. The human did not respond. He simply leaned back in his seat, his eyes fixed on the great projection of Earth spinning above the chamber. The calmness in his posture was more terrifying than any speech could have been. Around the hall, whispers began to spread. Delegates leaned toward each other, speaking in hushed tones. "Did you hear his words?" He did not deny it. He did not explain. He warned us. For the first time, many of the council members felt the weight of their own vulnerability. Their fleets were vast, their armies countless, but against an enemy that could erase without leaving a trace, numbers meant nothing. The human envoy finally stood. He looked around the chamber, his gaze sweeping over every alien species gathered there. His voice was calm, but sharp as steel. "Earth never asked for war. Earth never asked for submission. You forced your will upon us. And now, you face the consequences." Then he turned, and with his small group of companions, he walked out of the chamber once more. The doors closed behind them with a heavy sound. No one spoke for a long moment. The chamber was filled with the memory of his words, words that carried more weight than any weapon. "Do not test us again." Finally, one of the older delegates whispered, his voice barely audible. What if they are not bluffing?" Another replied in an even quieter tone. "No one who is bluffing walks into this chamber so calm." The speaker tried to regain control, but his hands trembled slightly on the staff. He looked at the projection of Earth, glowing silently in the dark void of the galaxy. For the first time, he wondered if the Council had made a mistake too large to undo. Because humanity had spoken. Not with begging, not with rage, but with a calm warning. And calm warnings are the most dangerous of all. The chamber remained silent long after the humans left. And in that silence, the Council realized something they had never believed possible. They were afraid. The silence in the council chamber lasted long after the humans left. The echo of their words lingered, heavy and sharp, like a shadow no light could erase. Delegates avoided each other's eyes. The speaker sat motionless, his silver skin dull under the chamber's glow. He had power, fleets, and armies at his command, but for the first time, he felt uncertain. The whispers spread faster now. Every corridor of the council station buzzed with rumors. Every world connected to the council repeated the same story. A fleet had vanished, the humans had spoken only once, and that single warning had silenced the chamber of the galaxy's rulers. Whispers became fear when more reports arrived. Ships from other species began to vanish, not only council warships, but traders, scouts, and even smugglers who strayed too close to human territory. No signals, no wreckage, no trace. Just gone. Some delegates demanded investigations. Others demanded war. But none had answers. The more they searched for signs of human fleets, the less they found. It was as though humanity had dissolved into the void, invisible yet everywhere. One council investigator presented a report. His voice shook as he spoke. "We have detected unusual patterns in deep space. Energy surges, far from any known system. They are organized, structured, almost like fleets on the move. But our scanners cannot follow them. They vanish when we try to lock on." The chamber grew quiet. Organized surges meant fleets. Fleets meant preparation. And if those fleets could not be tracked, then humanity had gained an advantage no other species possessed. In the far corners of the galaxy, alien commanders sent warnings to their people. Stay away from human sectors. Do not travel near their colonies. Do not approach their borders. Fear began to shape the map of space. Entire routes were abandoned. Worlds once proud to defy Earth now refused to speak the human's name aloud. The council grew weaker with every rumor. Arguments tore through their meetings. Some leaders wanted to gather all their strength and strike Earth before it was too late. Others begged to open talks, to negotiate, to avoid a war they might not win. And then another rumor spread, more dangerous than any fleet report. Whispers claimed that humanity had allies. Unknown species, old races who had once vanished from the stars, now reappeared in the shadows. Some said humans had found them in secret. Others said humans had awakened ancient machines hidden in the void. No one could prove it, but the fear was enough. Delegates who once mocked Earth now trembled when the projection of the blue planet appeared in the chamber. It no longer looked like a small, fragile world. It looked like a storm waiting to break. The speaker tried to hold control. He struck his staff, his voice strong. We cannot be ruled by fear. Humanity is only one world. They cannot stand against the united strength of the galaxy. But even as he spoke, he felt the doubt in the chamber. His words no longer carried weight. The humans had spoken once, and that was enough. The council had spoken many times, and each word sounded weaker than the last. Outside the chamber, in the hidden halls of the station, smaller groups of delegates met in secret. They spoke quietly, too quietly for guards to hear. Some suggested surrender. Others spoke of secret pacts with Earth. A few even wondered if leaving the council altogether would keep their people safe. The council was breaking. And far away, in the endless dark of space, humanity's silence continued. Fleets moved unseen. Signals pulsed in codes no alien could understand. Colonies prepared, but not with fear, with patience. Humanity had learned long ago that silence was a weapon, and now they used it with precision. The galaxy waited for Earth's next move. But Earth gave no answer. And the waiting itself was becoming unbearable. The chamber was filled to its highest seats. Every delegate was present, every voice ready to decide the future of the galaxy. The tension was thick, almost suffocating. For weeks they had argued, shouted, and blamed one another, but now the choice could no longer be delayed. Humanity's silence was driving the council apart, and either they united against Earth, or admitted defeat without a fight. The speaker's voice rang out across the hall, heavy and sharp. Today we vote. War or surrender. No more delay. His silver eyes swept over the assembly. If we show weakness, the humans will consume us one by one. If we strike now, with all our strength, we may still crush them. Shouts erupted from the floor. Some delegates raised their fists in support, demanding an immediate war. Others shouted back, accusing the speaker of leading them into disaster. The chamber boiled with noise until the speaker slammed his staff so hard the sound echoed like a gunshot. Enough. We will vote. The lights dimmed as the great vote system activated. Each delegate placed their mark, one by one, their choices glowing above them for all to see. War. 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 The word burned across the chamber, brighter with each declaration. Fear had become rage, and rage had turned into resolve. Finally, the decision was complete. The result blazed in the center of the chamber. War against Earth, approved. The speaker's voice carried the weight of doom. Then it is decided. Humanity will be erased from the stars. But before the chamber could erupt in cheers or cries, the lights flickered. The vast holographic projection of the galaxy above them shifted. At first, it showed the usual star maps. Then new signals appeared. Not random, not chaotic, clear and precise. Dozens of fleets. Hundreds. Thousands. They emerged across the map, surrounding not just Earth, but key worlds throughout Council space. Entire sectors lit up with the terrifying glow of human signatures. Fleets where there should be none. Signals where no Council scouts had ever reported activity. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Delegates leaned forward, unable to believe what they were seeing. The speaker's staff trembled in his hand. This is impossible. And then, as if to answer him, a voice filled the chamber. It was not shouted, not broadcast with aggression. It was calm, steady, and chilling. The humans had returned. Their envoy stood once more at the center of the hall, flanked by his quiet companions. "You voted for war," he said simply. His eyes swept the room, his tone sharper than any weapon. "And war is already here." The holograms shifted again. The fleets were moving, not toward Earth, but toward the Council's own borders. Worlds unprotected. Supply routes exposed. Colonies vulnerable. Humanity had not waited for the vote. They had already prepared. Some delegates gasped. Others slumped in their seats, their courage draining away in the face of a power they could not comprehend. The thought that had haunted them for weeks was now undeniable. Earth had not been silent out of fear. Earth had been silent because it was already in control. The envoy's gaze hardened. "You still have a choice. Continue this path, and your worlds will burn. Step back, and your people may yet live." He turned without waiting for an answer. His small group walked out of the chamber once more, leaving the council staring at the fleets that now filled their skies. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council realized it had lost control. And in the silence that followed, fear crushed every last word of defiance. The council chamber was darker than usual. The fleet still glowed across the massive projection above, a map of doom stretching across half the galaxy. Delegates sat frozen in their seats, their faces pale, their voices silent. For the first time, no one dared to speak out of turn. The vote for war felt like a death sentence they had written with their own hands. The speaker tried to gather his strength, slamming his staff against the floor, but the sound was hollow. "We are the council," he declared, though his voice trembled. "We command countless worlds, endless armies. Humanity cannot possibly." He stopped when the hologram shifted again. New signals appeared. Not ships this time, but something greater. Planetary shields collapsing, supply depots vanishing, deep space outposts going silent one by one. Humanity had struck already, faster than any council fleet could respond. The message was clear: no world was safe, no defense unbreakable. A murmur rose from the seats. "How are they doing this? We never saw their fleets move. They are everywhere at once." And then, without warning, the humans appeared again. The envoy walked into the chamber with the same calm, steady pace as always. His companions flanked him, silent as shadows. He stopped in the center, lifted his eyes to the galaxy projection, and then spoke in a voice that carried like iron through still air. "Your rule ends today." The words struck harder than any weapon. Delegates stiffened in their seats. Some shook their heads in denial, others lowered their eyes. The speaker gripped his staff so tightly his silver skin cracked at the joints. "You cannot erase the council," he shouted, though his voice was brittle. "We are the law of the galaxy." The envoy looked directly at him, calm, unshaken. "Law means nothing without power to enforce it. And your power is gone." The chamber shook as if the universe itself agreed. The hologram above them flared brighter, showing council fleets across multiple systems under attack. The humans had not waited for permission. They were dismantling the council in real time, piece by piece, while its leaders sat helplessly watching. Some delegates broke. A tall reptilian stood, his scales pale with fear. "We cannot win. We must surrender." Another followed, then another. Soon the chamber was filled not with shouts for war, but with cries for survival. The speaker tried to shout them down, but his voice was drowned out by the panic of those who finally understood. The envoy waited. He let them break. He let them crumble before speaking again, his voice steady as stone. "Earth does not seek to rule your people. But you will never again rule us. The age of the council is over." And with that, he turned his back and walked away. The doors closed behind him, heavy and final. The chamber was silent. The speaker sat frozen on his throne, his staff slipping from his hand, clattering loudly against the floor. No one picked it up. No one shouted. No one resisted. Because in that moment, every leader of every world realized the truth. Humanity had not just defied the council. Humanity had replaced it. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear of the council's authority. It was ruled by the silence, the patience, and the terrifying calm of Earth. And from that day forward, the council chamber never spoke of victory again. Only survival.